Hi, good evening, everyone. We're just going to start in a minute or two. Folks are just joining in. Hey, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whichever time zone you're in. My name's Hisham. I'm with the Environmental Defense Fund, and we, in association with 100 Plus Accelerator, welcome you to today's webinar. We're thrilled to have you all. What we were planning to do over the course of the next hour or so is, first of all, give you a little bit of context about why we're having this webinar at all. And then have a conversation around some key issues for a sector, and then there's an introduction to the accelerator. I'm with the Environmental Defense Fund, EDF. We're an organization that believes that there is a uniquely Indian pathway possible to shared sustainable prosperity. We're here to support actors and constituencies to move towards that. My colleagues are going to introduce 100 Plus Accelerator in a bit, so I'll talk less about that. But what I will just say is that over the course of the next 10 years, India needs to double steel, double cement, double construction, double industrial production, double transportation, double just about every other sector. There's a real risk that we'll end up doubling emissions. Now, our poor, our health infrastructure, and our food systems wouldn't be able to bear those shocks. One way where this kind of vicious cycle of growth and emissions can be broken is through a virtuous cycle of technology. India has a lot of the preconditions for a climate technology revolution. It has the political will, it has the enabling environment, it has the talent, it has the entrepreneurial spirit, and it's got a track record. It's proven it in fintech and increasingly so in edtech. The challenge today and for all of us is, how do you catalyze it for climate tech as well? And we think today's conversation is one important part of it. 100 Plus Accelerator is an organization that has amongst its constituents AB InBev, the Coca-Cola Company, and Colgate-Palmolive and Unilever. And today in the audience, we've got 3 of the 4 companies represented, as well as a large number of startups. An essential part of collaborations like this are to get the demand and the supply of ideas working with each other, so that entrepreneurs and innovators are delivering ideas that corporates and businesses are looking for. So that's the context for today. It's part of something that we call climate tech convening, and the attempt is to have focused conversations by specific industry verticals. I'm now going to request the panelists, Ashok from the Coca-Cola Company, Ashwin from AB InBev, and Shashank from Colgate-Palmolive to turn on their videos and join us in this conversation. Oh, there was one housekeeping rule. We have a set of questions that I'll ask, but along the way, if there are questions that you have, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can. So to each of the panelists, first of all, I'm going to ask one question, a common question to everyone, and maybe we could start with you, Ashwin. If you could briefly introduce yourself and tell us about what are the areas that you're looking, when you're looking at sustainability and investing, as you all have done in 100 Plus Accelerator, how do you make the business case for efforts like this, innovation towards sustainability?
Thanks, Hisham, and hi everyone. So I head procurement and sustainability for AB InBev in India and Southeast Asia. Now, picking up from the question which you asked, Hisham, what is the business case for it, especially for the focus areas that we have? So if you look at our sustainability goals, we are primarily in India, focusing on agriculture, water, and then circular packaging and climate action. Climate action, of course, being the larger piece, which cuts across the value chain and hence the other pillars that I just talked about. I would say the business case often is very different depending on what are the intervention areas you're talking about. So when you look at our internal business case on something like water stewardship, it has a lot to do with not just risk mitigation now, by the way, but also the positive externality you are creating, along with, of course, the financial numbers, which you can get in many cases, which actually takes me to the example of agriculture. So with agriculture, the biggest benefit that we have is that we are now localizing a lot of our RM requirements, which is raw material requirement, barley requirements in particular, which is a huge amount for us. And a lot of it is still imported. But over the last 2-3 years, we've created sort of a roadmap to this. And therein, along with emission savings, you also get a very legitimate commercial number on the savings. So it's just a very important byproduct of what we are doing over there. And I think if you ask me the benefit, right, the benefit to us internally, along with, of course, the sustainability emissions that we are talking about, the reductions on that front, there are very clear positive saving benefits also, which come in many cases. For example, for us to invest a lot in battery technology, it actually is bringing down, not just increasing our renewable electricity percent, but in many cases, depending on the state we are operating in, is also bringing down the electricity cost. So that's sort of, I would say, the ideal situation is where both of them could happen together very conveniently. There are challenges which come up in different, I would say, states or different categories where you're trying to intervene, where there are also trade-offs you have to take. So there are certain cases in which we are taking trade-off for higher hits in terms of our capital investment or operating investment to increase our renewable electricity percentage also. So it's ultimately about a mix of those things where you're intervening in what is the policy that is supporting you or not supporting you in certain cases where you'll have to take those decisions.
So no, appreciate that. I think looking at it from an emissions reduction, a commercial number, and I'm sure an increased brand loyalty point of view, because consumers increasingly want to be part of a responsible buying and consuming ecosystem. Shashank, and we'll come back to the trade-offs, because I think you started talking about it interesting, but we'll come back to that. Shashank, could I pass it on to you from Colgate's perspective? How do you think about the business case, to the extent that you can share? What are the kind of conversations that happen internally?
Sure. Thanks, Hassan. So I'll quickly introduce myself first. So I'm Shashank Singh, working as Asia Pacific Sustainability Manager with Colgate. I'm based out of Hong Kong. And before I start, I would just like to thank 100 Plus Accelerated program for expanding this program in India, because I believe there's a huge potential in India, which can be nurtured and flourished through this program. So I'm very happy, and kudos to the team. Best wishes. And to your question to priority areas, Hasim, if you look at our sustainability strategy, so we have 3 big ambitions and 11 key defined targets or action areas, right? So, but having said that, there are a couple of areas which are more pronounced than others. For example, circular economy, climate action, and water stewardship. These are the areas where we need joint efforts to speed and accelerate our actions, right? So I'll quickly talk about the values, what we are deriving from this partnership ecosystem. Is we are already working with the startups through this program to leverage their expertise and to pilot and scale their ideas into the business. And of the 6 startups, what we have sponsored directly, 5 are focused on circular economy. So you can see a clear linkage between our ambition and our action areas, right? So some of them are working on biomaterials for packaging, some of them are working on soluble and biodegradable alternatives to flexible packaging. Some of them are working on innovative heating solution to save on packaging and energy. And Plastic for Change is there, which is sort of creating a fair trade system for recycling plastic waste. So right, so these are the sort of values we are deriving. And in terms of business benefit, I would say, the very first thing is, I think, speed. So we understand that the new technologies and innovations are developed very quickly. So we want to leverage on that. So we want to be part of the conversation. So right, so we are leveraging a lot on that. And it is also helping us to reduce our risk exposure, creating positive impact on the ecosystem overall. It is also giving us access to new packaging formats and materials, which is which is a key focus area, and responsible execution on the ground, and building, as you mentioned, is building our equity, right? So yeah, so all these, in my opinion, are the direct business benefits what we are deriving through these partnerships, and why we are looking forward to it.
Thanks. Ashok, do we have you back? Yes, we do. Sorry, Ashok, I'm not sure about the other, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I got dropped. Happy to be back.
No problems at all. Introduction of yourself, please, and also the question on the business case the business case point within Coca-Cola.
Sure. So myself, Ashok, I'm with Coca-Cola now, handling sustainability for India and Southwest Asia region. I'm part of technical and supply chain background, having worked in the engineering and projects and manufacturing sector for all along my career. And happy to be part of this program. I truly believe it has immense value, because the kind of potential we have after interacting with the kind of startups we are having in all fields, whether it's circularity, whether it's energy. I think we have huge potential to meet the need with the talent or with the invention. So very, very excited to be part. Coming to the business case, as you see, sustainability is not something now a buzzword, right? It's integral part of the business. As you would have seen, our global priorities, like they're among the ESG 9 goals, but 3 or 4 of them, like climate and water particularly, and WWW, World Without Waste, are like some of the pronounced one, where rather than looking at as a business case or a payback, what we are trying to do is how it can be an integral part of the business, where the choices and decisions are made towards achieving this goal. For example, you would have seen in World Without Waste, we recently had a announcement that 25% our volume will come from returnable. So that itself is a big step, which is part of the business making the circularity or returnable work. Similarly, in the area of water, while one would look at efficiencies, going to the local level, our new 2030 strategy is about having the water security not only within the plant level from operation efficiency, but going to the watershed level and going to the communities, and then look at how holistically we look at water stewardship. So to be honest, in some cases, there will be a very good payback from a business case point of view, energy, climate. In some cases, there won't be. But what we love to see is how we integrate this whole towards part of the business and making the ultimate ESG goal works for us. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate that. What I've heard the 3 of you talk about are the trade-offs implicit in some of these positions, the fact that sustainability is now a core part of your business strategies. And I think, Shashank, you made the point about joint efforts. And I see joint efforts 2 ways. One is between the corporate and individual entrepreneurs and innovators, as well as amongst companies in the sector, which is what's represented today. what we wanted to move to was individual questions about some really remarkable stories that I've discovered recently about your individual companies. Shashank, if I could start with you. So Colgate-Palmolive decides that they are going to recycle a significant amount of the toothpaste packaging. Now that's in of itself a good thing, but a very interesting angle is you then chose to share the technology with whoever wanted to use it. Now that is a lot more newsworthy, if I can say so. And I wanted to ask you what the logic was for that and what has been the pickup on that? I mean, have you got interest beyond Colgate factory and suppliers?
Thanks for this question, Hisam. Yes, absolutely. This is a breakthrough innovation, what we have achieved recently. And as a global toothpaste leader, we understand our responsibility, right? So this was a key question to us from a very long time, that how can we make our toothpaste tube a part of circular economy value chain? So our team was constantly working on that, and from last couple of years to find these answers. And we were very glad that we were sort of able to achieve this, not only for us, but for the environment and for the community. In terms of impact, this tube is, it is made of HDPE material, which has one of the highest recycling rate across the countries, and this is 100% technically recyclable tube. And the second is we also conducted a LCA study, life cycle assessment study, where we found out that this tube is cutting down about 26% of the carbon emission from the last tube, right? And water usage requirement is also cut down by 40%. So now this is the impact of one tube, what we sort of created. But as you mentioned, when we started sharing about this technology, a lot of people started joining us, and we are very excited to hear that the other major brands are also have pledged to move to recyclable tube by 2025. And this is the kind of impact we are talking about. So globally, we use about 20 billion toothpaste tubes in a year. And just imagine by 2025, if 60 or 70% of the tubes are recyclable. So, one innovation has such a huge impact on the ecosystem. And this is the power of the collaborative effort, and so that we can multiply on the impact, right? So yes, very right. I mean, this is our vision to sort of, and this was the thought process to share it openly in the market. And another part of story is, making a toothpaste tube that is recyclable is only half the battle done, because traditionally we know that the recyclable tube were not made. It is made up of MLP, which is multi-layered plastic, and non-recyclable. So how can we influence consumer behavior so that it is not mixed with the non-recyclable stream, right? And how can we educate our value chain partners so that it is properly sorted? And how can we work with the recyclers to encourage them so that this is properly being recycled, right? So these are the key challenges currently what we are facing across the market. And this is not only particularly in India. Across the market, we are facing this challenge, and we are learning, testing, and implementing new things, but we are not there yet. And these are the systemic changes we are talking about. And and I think this is a company alone can't do it. Probably with collaboration and with joint efforts, we'll be able to make it happen.
Sure. No, appreciate that. Thanks so much. Ashok, I wanted to move to Coke's water security initiatives. And obviously, given the scale of Coke and the scale of water consumption, the numbers are fairly daunting and impressive at the same time. The effort that you've put together, which a lot of it, is what Coke does and what Coke suppliers do, that infrastructure and that ecosystem that you've built, what is the role and how can communities play a larger part, and how can outsiders to the Coke supply chain, so an innovator that's there in today's panel or outside the panel, how do they get into your network?
Sure, and I'm glad you picked that up, Hisham. Water is very close to our heart. It is the key ingredient, and hence all what we do, our ESG goals, the water security, water strategy is integral part of the business. So you see, we work on three principles: reduce, reuse, and recycle. When it comes to first saving the water itself that we can use, so that's the first part. The amount of water that we can use needs to be minimal, So just to give you an example, we used to use like 2.3 liters of water for producing every liter of beverage. Now it has come down to 1.68, which is like more than 35% improvement. So a lot of technology, opportunities are there for reducing the water and recycling particularly, and reuse of the water within the operations. And there are a lot of good technology innovations coming in there. For example, the RO efficiency used to be 80%. Now there are membranes which can do 92%, right? Reverse osmosis. So just to give you an example. When it comes to replenishment, that is what giving it back to the nature. That's a big program again around water, and also communities. So for at the India level, we recharge almost more than 200% of what water we use, and almost 40% of water comes from surface, and another from ground. See, the replenishment is one aspect, but anywhere, but doing it where we operate is important, and that is where the technology can come into play, and also for the communities at large there. So for example, you see there is so much problem in India for drinking water availability at so many villages. Making the water, drinkable water, scalable and economical. For example, we have a program called WASH. So we go and install the RO-based drinking water in remote villages. But again, it's not very scalable, the cost and everything. So any technology coming in there can help. So that's overall, it's about within operations, what can be done, reduce, reuse. In replenishment, how can we do it in a better and economical way, and of course serving the communities in a right ways.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that, Ashwin. AB InBev was central to setting up 100+ Accelerator, and we're all obviously happy that you've done that. What I want to ask you, kind of a part A and a part B question. It's essential to get incubation support, funding, monies available to startups. But when there are companies such as yours, having the company as a customer of these startups, it's often worth its weight in gold. How does ABF, how do you look at being customers to these innovators? And specifically, I wanted to ask you if you had examples that you could talk about on freight, because freight is an area which I know is a priority for you. It's a priority for every consumer goods company out there. And there it's not just I'm going to support an innovation, but I have to transport goods. So can I be a customer?
Yeah, those are two excellent sub-part questions, I would say. So if I look at our working with the startups now, a lot of whom would also be coming in the second panel over here, I would say one of the biggest learnings we've had is it's very important to map the expectation with the capabilities, because many times we actually found many startups who were so initial in their stages of growth, while our expectations were of immediate changes or something in 3 months, 6 months, and that leads to a lot of dissonance, which has nothing actually to do with the capability gap. It has a lot more to do with the expectation gap. That's what actually takes me to the second point, which is defining very clear milestones and objectives. Once you have your expectation clear, every startup in every industry is actually, because they're at a different stage of maturity, they're looking at different kind of a support. There might be a startup which might literally be looking at an office space to work out of. There is another startup which is looking at actually how they can tap into our own internal technical expertise, through which they can further build their products, ramp up exponentially, which may be incremental for them right now. Then there are the other aspects where you are literally looking at startups who within have that technical expertise. They are looking at that funding which can help them scale up. So that's where these different concepts of incubation, accelerators, or just giving a startup an opportunity to work on a particular project, these are different models which comes in. I think we've learned a lot as we've gone through the process, that the sooner you identify this and look at the startup requirement with the corporate expectation fit, the quicker you do it and the more fine-tuned you are at the start, it works out really well. So I would say that that's how you can support. We as corporates in general can support the startup ecosystem. I also say that because every corporate has different goals, right? We just talked about, and all of us were focusing on different aspects because the materiality for all of us are very different. So once we start looking at different goals, there are different kinds of startup in different maturity. So we need to identify that. So that would be one of my points. And if we look at freight, we'll be having an excellent example of FreightFox, which should be coming up later today. I'll literally talk about our experience with their team, where when you compare the Indian freight market in general to probably the Western market, where if our organization itself has to decide, all our fleet in a 1 to 2 or a 3-year time frame has to go green, because that fleet is ours, it is relatively easy to create internal buy-in and business cases and get it implemented over a time frame. Here it's mostly third-party fleet in India. So that's where we recognize that first actually getting visibility on what that third-party fleet looks like across the country is very important, because we literally did not know that. What is the lane-wise situation? What Bharat norms are each of those fleets following in which route? So once we did that with the FreightFox team over the last 1.5, 2 years, we are now literally at a stage where we can implement a green miles program with our transporters, because we know what incentives we can give to the transporter to go more green. We know where the gaps lie. We know which one of our transport partners are also pioneers and want to do more in this space. And hence they can actually lead by example in that space. So I would say that one particular example for us where it's been like a very harmonious marriage of what FreightFox is delivering in terms of tech and analytics capability and insights, and where we are now looking at how we can leverage it in our larger transporters ecosystem.
Thanks a ton for that. I love the freight example because, greening the truck is obviously important and you should green the truck, but it is equally essential to green the overall system that you have and incentivize that green for your partners. So thanks for that. We're coming to the end, and I was going to leave, throw open the question one to each of you. Part of the challenge that we see is when we speak to, innovators and entrepreneurs, they say companies and investors aren't serious. They're not really putting in money. When you speak to companies and investors, they say, hey, we're getting really wild and wacky ideas, but none of them have applicability in the medium term in the real world. And so are there particular areas that you as a company see the need for increased innovations and ideas emerging? And this is part of today's effort, is to bridge that demand and supply gap of ideas and innovations. And maybe Ashok, can I start with you? And if I could ask everyone to just have like a 1 minute answer, because we're running a little bit.
Very quick one, but yeah, there are just too many, I would say, challenges here. But if I have to pick one or two, and since you raise on water, I think the water from atmosphere has been a talking point, and some companies have really worked on that. But still, I feel there's a huge opportunity when it comes to making it viable, scalable, and more economical, the whole space. The another thing is, this for water, we have something called ZLD, zero liquid discharge, the multi evaporator MEPs. Again, it comes at a huge cost and energy consumption. Anything coming there to make it more, efficient, like taking less space, would be great. And the last area I would pick up is, anything to do with heat recoveries, because the processing plants like us, and I'm sure for Shashank and Ashwin, there are so many processes which are taking energy and which are releasing it somewhere else. Anything that makes this recoveries and regenerations more efficient, more for example, a lot of places you have a water which is coming at 50 degrees Celsius, but it is not usable unless it can be discharged, that the energy is discharged at 80-degree temperature. So anything to do with this heat recoveries and innovations, those will be in a processing plant for us, would be very helpful. So these are 2-3 top level areas, but I'm sure there are many, including EVs and including solar, making it more viable. So I'm sure I'll link to the group, and when we have more time we can talk. Yeah, thanks.
Shashank, can I pass it on to you?
Thanks, Sachin. So I'll just take a step back, and in terms of climate impact and the innovation, when we sort of trying to make the linkage, so what we recently conducted our carbon footprint assessment study for the business, and we found out that the 80% of the carbon is being generated post consumer usage and disposal of the products, right? So which is a very, very big area, and 5% is coming out from our operation and 15% from the goods and services we are purchasing. So you can see that 80% in, so therefore it is for a FMCG company, it is paramount. It is that the designing of the product is done from the life cycle point of view, and this is the big area where we want to sort of to collaborate with innovators, to new startups, how to choose the right material with the same performance, how can we explore new forms and factors for our products, how can we sort of most importantly influence the consumer behavior in. So I think these are the white spaces from my perspective and understanding, where we see that innovation has a very, very big role to play.
Right. Well, thanks. And that's a very interesting insight, the 80% coming after, it leaves the factory gates effectively. Ashwin, can I pass to you?
Yes, I would just add on with two quick points on two ends of the value chain spectrum. One area where I think a lot more innovation can happen is the product cooling aspect of it, which is the product finally reaching the consumers. That chiller space, that is a big contributor to the greenhouse gas emissions. Everyone who's dealing in beverages would recognize that. And if I start looking at the other end, and I'll sort of pick up from what Ashok also said, right? Energy and fluids in general, there can be a lot more that can happen in that space to actually transform it completely. We see a lot more happening in circular packaging because it's visible and evident in front, and hence it's always the fancier thing to do. But I think the more difficult thing at the back end to get these operations right, it will give you a magnified GHG emission impact. So those two things from me.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a good conversation. I really, really hope this is the start of many more amongst all of us as a group, but beyond that as well. We're now concluding this part of the conversation and moving to the next one, where Carolina will talk more about 100+ Accelerator. And just one quick line on that one. This is an effort that provides funding support, incubation support, mentorship to some really exciting startups, and some of them are there today, and it'll be great to hear their stories. For all the innovators and startups out there, just keep in mind, beyond the 100+ Accelerator, there is also the potential to be to have these corporates as customers. So be persistent is my advice to you. Carolina, all yours.
Thank you, Hisham, and thank you for all the panelists for that very insightful panel. It was perfect for the conversation that we'll soon begin, and quickly I'm gonna share my screen. So we've spoken a lot about the 100+ Accelerator, and Hisham already spoke a little bit about it. So before we go into the discussion, I wanted to just give you a brief introduction, a brief taste of what the 100+ Accelerator is. So on the one hand, and you've already heard my colleagues from Coca-Cola, Colgate-Palmolive, and AB InBev talking about all the sustainability challenges that we have, and also about the fact that we cannot solve these on our own. Even if we have brilliant teams across the world, we know that no one company can solve this on its own, and that's why we need to partner with innovators that have solutions out there with traction that can help us innovate for a better world. We all have very big and ambitious sustainability goals, but we need to work in collaboration. That is why these 4 companies, AB InBev, the Coca-Cola Company, Colgate-Palmolive, and Unilever, that unfortunately couldn't join us in the session today, join forces to innovate for a sustainable future and to partner with startups all across the world that were solving pressing sustainability challenges. And we've talked about it a little bit earlier in the panel today about the challenge of actually transitioning to green logistics with the freight, or changing materials, or have 100% recycled content in our packaging, and protecting our watersheds. So that's why we launched several challenges on climate action, water stewardship, smart agriculture, biodiversity, circular economy, inclusive growth. And also we now have partnered with 2 of our leading brands, Corona, which is one of our most beloved beer brands that have a plastic-free challenge, and Rexona, one of Unilever's deodorant brands that is sponsoring the Inclusivity Challenge. That said, the program works like this. We launch every year challenges that you can all see in our webpage. They are all disclosed there. These challenges are reviewed by our subject matter experts every year, and we launch them out looking for startups all across the world. And of course, we're crossing our fingers to get the best talent from India, which we know has amazing innovators out there. Once we launch these challenges, we go through an application process, which is currently open until May 15. And then we select the very best, and we give each $100,000, up to $100,000 to implement their pilot. But most importantly, more important than the $100,000 is that we build these pilots in partnerships with our teams. So it's an opportunity for a startup to work directly in the value chain of one of these big corporates. And they will have a team that is going to help them implement and navigate through these multinationals. Throughout the program, we also create many virtual opportunities and trainings on financial modeling, public speaking, leadership, negotiation, amongst others. But that's a complementary part of the program. Our main focus is actually delivering on the pilot, showing results, which will all end on a global demo day. The next one is coming up on June 9, where we show all the results from the program and where we decide also to scale. And you're gonna see in the panel coming up next, a little bit of the experience of some of the startups that have already gone through the program and are scaling up, and others that are currently doing their pilots with us. So until now, we have worked with over 70 startups in almost 30 countries across the world. So for us, it's very important to have a big geographical footprint. And the good news is that these 4 companies together, of course, we are almost operating in every country in the world and sell our brands in almost every country in the world. So we need to use this footprint also to transform and deliver. This year, we selected 35 startups. 2 of them will be joining us today, Plastics for Change and FreightFox, that you'll meet in a second. And now that we're closing the 3rd cohort, we're ready to get and meet all the new innovators from the cohort. As I mentioned before, applications are open. They will close on May 15, and we will start the reviewing process, hoping that by September, we will be able to announce who will be part of this next cohort. So if you're a startup that wants to change the world or know a startup that wants to change the world with us, please invite them to join us at the 100 Plus Accelerator. We're definitely looking out for the very best of the startups. And now, we're going to please welcome me in the session. Just a quick note so you can see here. Excellent. So now we're going to have in the panel 4 companies that have been amazing. As I mentioned, 2 of them, Kisanhub with Gilles Baker, the CEO, and Erthos with the CEO, Nuha Siddiqui. They were part of our first initial cohorts, the first 2 cohorts, but now also in the panel, we have Nitish, CEO of FreightFox, and Shifra, CTO, Chief Impact Officer of Plastics for Change, 2 startups that are currently in the program joining us. So I think this is going to be a very fun conversation with different experiences. So while you are all being added to the spotlight, I just want each of you to give a quick introduction of what your company does and a very short and sweet description of the pilot that you implemented within the 100 Plus Accelerator. So Gilles, if you want, kick it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Carolina, and hello, everybody. My name's Giles Barker. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Kisanhub. So as Carolina mentioned, we were the first cohort all the way back in 2018. So that was when AB InBev first started as a single corporate. And we were very fortunate to start our work in the Indian region. And give you a bit of idea about Kisanhub. So we create supply chain software for large agri corporates to help manage their supply chains. So for us, we've been working with the ABI barley procurement team and the agro team to help them manage and monitor their supply chain of 1,000 growers throughout the Indian region. And for us, it's really important for us to focus on some of the key goals for AB InBev. And that was about kind of connecting 100% of their farming network, making them skilled, financially empowered, and connected. And we're really fortunate to carry on throughout the pilot and then onto a commercial contract as well, which I'll be happy to talk about in a bit. But yeah, great to be here. Thanks very much, Carolina.
Excellent. And coming up next, we'll talk about the scale-up phase that you've been leading as well. So Nuha, kick it off.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm Nuha, co-founder and CEO of Erthos, and we're creating plant-powered alternatives for traditional plastics, primarily single-use applications, hard-to-recycle products. Our materials are fully compatible with existing supply chains, both with brands and manufacturers. They're sustainably manufactured and they're compostable at their end of life. We were part of the second cohort with the 100+ Accelerator, where we created a plant-powered keg cap or a closure for AB InBev's supply chain. It was a really exciting opportunity to turn, our initial material technology into a real-world application, which we're excited to roll out later this year.
Amazing. And now, FreightFox and Plastics for Change, as I mentioned, are part of the current cohort. So they're actually doing their pilots as we speak. They already have promising results. And it's also the first cohort that is now working also with Colgate, Coca-Cola, and Unilever. And of course, AB InBev, as AB InBev has been the partner that founded the program. So Shifra, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your pilot.
Hi, really lovely to be here. I'm Shifra, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Plastics for Change. I'm responsible for the overall revenue portfolio at Plastics for Change, and we're always innovating on different avenues and projects and products. Basically, as a company, we source and deploy fair trade solutions and engaging with the informal sector, especially in countries like India, to collect plastic. We collect ocean plastic and also deploy, as I mentioned, fair trade practices. And all of that plastic is then recycled to really high quality spec for packaging requirements of global brands. And this particular pilot, we're doing exactly that. We're tagged with Unilever and Colgate at the moment, and we're providing fair trade recycled plastic for some of their brand SKUs. So really, really exciting, and I can't wait to see some of these products actually hit the shop floors and seeing what the consumer feedback is going to be, because at the end of the day, that's what really drives everything, isn't it? So so really excited to be part of this, and yeah, I think I'll hand it to Nitish.
Sure. Thanks, Shifra, and hello, everyone. This is Nitish. I'm the founder of FreightFox. Very excited to be here. We are currently part of, as already Carolina said, that we are part of the current cohort. And we are working on something which is basically external to the control of the organizations, looking at how the footprint to serve. So cost to serve is a very common thing which we hear, but how we can control the footprint to serve, as in all the markets which we are catering to right now. We are piloting it in India right now, where we have, as Ashwin already spoke about, a third-party market fleet which is operational in the transportation chains. So we are looking at how we can create a credible and near real-time frameworks to measure the emissions, especially the tailpipe emissions which is happening around the transportation chains. And what are the ways and interventions which can be done through technology and through motivation or inclusion in order to reduce that and make lives better for us, who anyways are traveling on the roads all alongside these vehicles, and also bring in a sense of I would say green footprint while serving the beer to the end customers. So that's where we are currently piloting and working on that particular project. Yeah.
Amazing. So a very diverse group. We have climate action focusing on green logistics, but also two circular packaging startups and smart agriculture, and hopefully many more coming up next year. But I want to recall a little bit what Ashwin was saying in the previous panel, that sometimes working with corporates is hard because we find a solution, then we want to scale it up to the world, and maybe the startup doesn't have that capacity. So I want to hear from your experience, both Nuha and Gilles, on the scale up, because it's not always as easy as piloting and then scaling it up. Sometimes it's part of the process. In your case, Nuha, maybe you can start to talk us a little bit all the stages, all the validation that you had to go through until now, when we are finally actually going to have the market deployment.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a long but very important process, and I think it varies for everybody. But for us, when we started, we had our materials, but we hadn't fully validated product market fit, or what our business model was going to look like. And that was why we came to the 100+ accelerators, because we wanted to find value from our materials by working directly with a corporate. And so, I think Ashwin kind of mentioned around just the expectations that we set with AB InBev and how we were actually going to plan out this scale up. So it was a lot of kind of communicating what stages, what the trials look like, and how we can ultimately end up in a successful pilot. So we went through multiple rounds of trials and tests. I mean, we're all building very innovative technologies and solutions, so it takes time to validate and make sure that it fully integrates. And so it was multiple different trials that we did with the team in India, and after those trials, we're very, very pleased with the fact that, we finally passed testing and we're now rolling that out. But I think what we tried to do is we made sure to learn every step of the way, because this was new for us, working with, a massive corporate, and understanding what processes are involved and how we can better build our company as we scale as well, to make sure that we can truly build solutions that can be easily integrated.
Thank you, Nuha. What about your experience scaling up, Gilles?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think when we first joined the Accelerator, we were kind of a fairly young startup company. I think what the exposure we got from the Accelerator program is kind of giving us that maturity, I guess kind of fast tracking that maturity, because, in the companies on the program, the corporates, they have huge amount of kind of expertise in terms of how to operate in such scale. And I think for startups like Kisanhub, we didn't have that expertise in-house about how you can operate at scale and how you can make sure that deployments are successful and how they're rolled out. So I think for us, we got that through the program, but also a clear direction of what does best in the industry look like. So setting KPIs, setting objectives, having kind of catch-up meetings, and making sure that everybody was all the time kind of up to date with what's going on. I think for us, that was really important. And I think it's been really powerful for us. And we've taken that forward into the work we do with AB InBev, but also all of our other clients as well. So I'd say that was one of the massive learnings for us. And we still kind of are still learning today as well.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned many things. One is learning across the way, because you work with experts from the company. And maybe I would love to hear a little bit more about that from Nitish, that has been working with our logistics team. And it has been like a symbiotic relationship, learning from each other. How's it been?
So as everyone mentioned, it's basically steep learning, first of all. So it accelerates how well you learn, and not only learn. So it is not only about the quantum of learning, but the enrichment which it brings in along with it. So what we observed was, since we were associated with logistics, where the stakeholders are internal and external both. So we had to work constantly with the ABI India logistics team in-house through this, and a transport partner ecosystem, which is basically external to the entire thing which is there. And that is why the excitement is that the problem statement which we pick up, the impact which is going to happen, is so exciting that the small hurdles which come in terms of which is any change management related hurdles which will come related to getting the access to the data, cleaning up of the data, understanding the connections from historical data to current data, how it has transitioned, what is our objectives, all those things putting in line is something which is very, very exciting alongside. And when we understand the clear path to deliver this, to engage with the external ecosystem, what are the differences which are there? So there is already an ongoing system of balance which is operational. Then we are trying to change the entire mechanism from a given type of contracting and piloting a different type of contracting. All these things are basically taken care by the strong support which comes in from the organization. So it is not only about the funds which will come in, but it is also about the tangible and intangible support, along with the encouragement which comes from the AB InBev specifically, where we are piloting, and it has proven and kept us going. There were points when we felt that there might be bigger challenges, but all said and done, together we could overcome these hurdles, not only in the internal ecosystem, but also in the external ecosystem to deliver the results, which we'll be showcasing in the demo day as well.
Excellent. Can't wait for those results. And Shifra, I think you can talk a little bit about resilience, because not always everything goes according to plan. And in the case of Plastics for Change, you've been tremendously resilient. We changed the pilot scope like over 1 million times until we agreed on what we were going to do. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I think as a startup, one of the advantages that we have is the ability to be very agile, to move very quickly, to change and incorporate things. But working with large multinationals like Unilever, Coca-Cola, across different countries, across different expectations within each of those countries, that's been a huge learning for us, and it's been fascinating. And so just learning to be patient and understanding each company's internal processes, because rightfully these companies are they're liable for a consumer product, right? So we don't see the full picture that way. We just say, hey, we've got the solution, take it now, and it's as simple as that for us. But there's so much work on the back end that's happening even to move one little thing. So that's been a huge learning for us, and it's been really, really good. But yeah, I really appreciate, I think end of the day, we've really, the relationship is really nurtured, and we really value that, right? So that's been really a really good learning for us overall.
Excellent, Shifra. And we're getting close to the closing remarks, but we had a question from Bob saying that if an early stage startup can apply. The answer is definitely. We always have a mix between the stage of the companies in the cohort, which I think also creates a very diverse and enriching environment. But I think it's better if you hear it from the startups themselves. Maybe we can do a quick round and you can advise the startups that are planning to apply to this cohort, why they should apply, if it was a good experience for you, and maybe some wisdom from your side. So Nuha, let's start with you.
I would say the 100 plus for us was transformational. It really changed the trajectory of our solutions, our materials, how we're thinking about the space in general. Anyone who is thinking of applying, definitely be as open and creative as possible, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to be able to have this platform to test a totally new solution with a corporate and with a large brand who's actually willing to test and try something new as well. We would have never thought a keg cap would even be a product application for our material, but we learned that, and we wanted to test, and we wanted to be open about it. So be as open and creative as possible, and use this opportunity to really learn and influence how you're building your business, even at the early stage.
Wonderful. Jill.
Yeah, absolutely. I would kind of encourage everybody on the call to apply. I think for us, it's been kind of transformational for our business, and in particular, kind of giving us that ability to kind of deploy our solution at scale. I think in particular, what you get from the 4 organizations who are part of the program is scale. And you've seen from the presentations before and what's been discussed, that's an unbelievable opportunity. As well as it's being funded, it really helps you kind of really put the time and effort and get your team involved to seeing what kind of the best in class looks like. And look, for us, it's been kind of transformational, and also in regards to commercial contracts as well. Going from a pilot to commercial contracts, it does change a bit, and there's a bit more pressure on as well, but that is fantastic experience, and I would encourage everybody to kind of go grab it.
And just as an FYI for everyone, more than 50% of the startups that have gone through the program, they have long-term commercial contracts with us. And now it's also the possibility of working with the 4 corporates, not only AB InBev. So that's exciting. What about you, Nitish and Shifra, that you're almost close to demo day?
So we are particularly very excited. This was a very, as I again repeatedly say, very amazing journey, and solving the way as the panelist also mentioned, that be open, be creative, and being creative is one of the creative liberty in a commercial environment, in a professional environment with organizations like AB InBev is very rare to get. And with that kind of a creativity gave us wings to expand the solution beyond AB InBev as well as we are going along. It's a very promising solution which would not have appeared completely with its potential, with its demonstrable results, had it not been in the 100+ Accelerator platform in place. So that's basically, I would say, and I'm excited to showcase the results on the demo day for sure.
Amazing. Shifra.
Well, I think without a doubt, Plastics for Change has been part of different accelerators, but I think, and I've said this to Carol before, but without a doubt, this has been one of the best accelerators we've participated in. It's easy for companies and brands to cut a check and give it to you, right? And I think that's been our historical experience. And while that is important, the accountability that that these 4 companies have taken on to actually integrate your solution into their supply chain for whatever category you're applying for, it's just phenomenal. I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And all of the companies are extremely patient, right? So don't worry if it's going to be successful or if it's actually not going to be such a great success, because the learning that comes out of it is just incredible. So keep your fingers, toes crossed, and by all means do apply. And good luck.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your great and inspirational work and words. For us, there's nothing more fulfilling than working with you, who are changing the world and are helping us change the world with you. So thank you for that. We really are inspired by you every day. For those that want to see the amazing work that Plastics for Change and FreightFox are doing, please do join us on Demo Day. We will be streaming that. It's coming up on June 9. You can also follow us on our social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. We're all over there showing the great startup that our startups are doing across the world. And just quickly, before we finalize this session right in time, I just wanted to do a quick reminder of the dates. We have applications open until May 15, so a couple more days to start preparing your application. So if you're a startup that wants to build a better world, or have a friend who is a founder of a startup that wants to build a better world, definitely loop them in. We're looking forward to have many great startups coming from India. We know it's a country with so much potential and also with so many challenges, as we saw in the initial panel. So we're definitely looking forward for your applications. And with that said, I think we can close the session today. It has been a great pleasure. And we are also very, very grateful with the Environment Defense Fund, who was our partner organizing this webinar. It's a great organization, and we need collaborators like them to keep spreading the word and strengthening the innovation ecosystem in all the countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.